this is just so fascinating. It was first, the thread was found by our producer Mac, but it fits neatly with a story that I've just been obsessed with recently. So let's put this up there on the screen. C.W. Howell, who is a Duke PhD and a professor, actually assigned his students a really interesting assignment. He said that he had them all generate an essay, 63 of his students, which used a prompt that he gave them for ChatGPT. Their job was to then grade their essay and look for so-called hallucinated information and critique its analysis. Now, what he points out, hallucinated information is stuff we talked about here before, fake quotes and fake sources, real sources that are misunderstood and mischaracterized. He says that all 63 essays, every single assignment, what he found was that the biggest takeaway is that their students learned that ChatGPT was not reliable because all of them included some sort of hallucinated information, Krystal. And it shows you that ChatGPT, at least in its current form, and maybe for all time, who knows how difficult this is for them to solve, is that can easily hallucinate and create false information. As we have shown previously, it has created false sexual assault allegations against people before. People who have tried to use it for purposes will ask them questions that they have deep knowledge about, and then we'll get back answers that are said in a very declarative format and which are completely wrong.
Yeah,
like,
which will cite like page numbers of studies.
It's like, what are you talking about? This is literally not what it says. And I actually thought, by the way, I love this assignment because it's showing people how to, it's like the real world example where he said, the real lesson for all my students was, yeah, you can't trust ChatGPT for stuff like this. And I was like, wow, what a useful thing to actually teach somebody in university instead of some stupid essay, which they're not even gonna think about. 10 years later, they're like, oh, I actually can't trust everything that I hear. Wow, it's more complicated, it's more nuanced, and it actually fits exactly with the same problem of a lawyer, let's go ahead and put this up there, who it was a lawyer for a man suing Avianca Airlines, the Colombian airline. The lawsuit was written by a by a lawyer who actually used ChatGPT. And in his brief around the lawsuit, cited, quote, a dozen relevant decisions. All of those decisions, however, actually could not find the decisions or the quotations cited or that were summarized. In other words, they were completely invented by ChatGPT. And the lawyer who actually created the brief had to come before the judge and issue an affidavit saying that he had used ChatGPT to do all of his legal research, which he now has to admit is, quote, a source that has revealed itself to be unreliable. You think? Well, it is funny, though, because there are quite a few tech bros, you know, who are online being like, the legal profession is dead. ChatGPT can pass an MCAT exam. ChatGPT can pass a legal brief or what all that. And it's like, yeah, well, you know what else they have to deal with in the medical field? It's called liability. And let's say you're right 99% of the time. Well, if you get it wrong 1% of the time, then what? Has Microsoft now just opened itself up to a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit? And at scale, 1% is actually a lot of people. So
think about this lawyer who's now in the New York Times, written up for like this moron, just like outsourced all his work to ChatGPT and didn't fact check any of it. There's a funny exchange in here because apparently he actually asked, he didn't fact check it himself, like go outside of the program to look up these cases and make sure that they actually existed. But he asked ChatGPT if they were real. He said, is Varghese a real case? He typed, according to a copy of the exchange he submitted to the judge. Yes, the chatbot replied, offering a citation, adding, it is a real case. Then the lawyer dug deeper. What is your source? He wrote, according to the filing. I apologize for the confusion earlier, ChatGPT responded, offering a legal citation. Are the other cases you provided fake, Mr. Schwartz, the lawyer asked. ChatGPT responded, no, the other cases I provided are real and can be found in reputable legal databases. None of that was true. And I think, you know, this is eye-opening to me of how often ChatGPT just makes stuff up out of whole cloth. Because we had seen some examples of people, they asked them a question of like, you know, what is the most cited like economic paper or something like that. And what it did is it took two existing economist researchers who I think had never worked together, or they certainly didn't create this paper together. It created a fake paper with a fake title, but these were real economists. So if you look at it, you would think it's got sort of like the semblance of truth to it. You're like, oh, okay, well, I just maybe haven't heard of that paper before. Let me go check it out. totally fabricated, 100% hallucinated. They mention in here the sort of theory of how and why this happens. Because again, remember what this thing is. It's a so-called large language models. The programmers feed it all of this text and existing case history and everything that's online and books and whatever. And then it uses predictive algorithms to come up with what its responses are going to be. So what they say in terms of a theoretical explanation for how this happens is ChatGPT generates realistic responses by making guesses about which fragments of text should follow other sequences based on a statistical model that has ingested billions of examples of text pulled from all over the internet. In Mr. Matta's, that's this guy who was the subject of the suit case, the program appears to have discerned the labyrinthine framework of a written legal argument, but is populated with names and facts from a bouillabaisse of existing cases. So it used this predictive statistical analysis of what it thought should go next to, it kind of figured out, okay, this is what a legal brief should look like. And then it just mashed together a bunch of information that wasn't actually real, wasn't actually factually based to generate this brief. Very similar to what these students found when their professor assigned them this task. Very similar output here. And I thought it was interesting what one of the students said, Saagar, in terms of her concerns. She wrote, "I'm not worried about AI getting to where we are now. I'm much more worried about the possibility of us reverting to where AI is. I'm increasingly thinking that's a real danger, where people do outsource a lot of their original thinking to ChatGPT or other large language models. And rather than, it making us better, it actually, in a sense, sort of dumbs us down and, waters down our thinking. In a sense, you already see this in a lot of the culture, and I don't know if it's related to technology or what it's related to, but how many of our movies are recycled? How much of our music is just like taking beats from like when I was in high school that were popular and dumping it into a new song and putting some new words to it? I already feel like there is such a degrading of creativity and lessening of creativity, and I think part of that is like the capitalist system, but I could see AI play an increasing role in all it has to draw on is like the things we've done in the past.
Yep.
It's not capable of creating something new. So if we're increasingly relying on this ChatGPT and other large language models that are just drawing and regurgitating and recycling and mashing together things that are from our past, does that stultify our creativity even more than where we're already at?
I agree 100%. There's an elegance to the human. One of my favorite scenes in a movie is from The Wolf of Wall Street, where Leo DiCaprio is surrounded by his friends, and John Bernthal is one of the actors, and he's like, "Sell me this pen," and he hands it to one of his friends, and the guy starts going like, "Oh well, this pen is beautiful." He's like, "No, that's not going to work." And he asks one of the other guy who is his favorite salesman, and Bernthal, and he's like, "Sell me this pen." He's like, "Hey, can you write something down for me?" He's like, "No, I can't." He said, "Yeah, exactly. That's why you need this pen." And there's such an elegance to that. And I just actually tried it with ChatGPT because it reminded me of this. I've seen this experiment before, and it falls for that lowest common denominator of, are you tired of ordinary pens? They're feeling lackluster, like trying to describe, but it doesn't create the demand. It doesn't have that like understanding of the human dynamic of what's actually going on here. And I feel like all ChatGPT has done is increase the lowest common denominator. So like it's better now for the lowest of low effort work. I think, okay, I mean, that's not bad thing whenever it comes to white collar, but people really underestimate how much little minute decision makings and creativity and things that require human beings to do. Can you automate all that? Maybe, but I always think about Noam Chomsky's op-ed where he talked, and yeah, Noam right now, very complicated feelings on Noam after the whole Epstein thing, but in his area of expertise on linguistics, what he wrote is that what LLMs fail to understand is it's just literally not how the human mind or language evolved. It's not about amalgamating a bunch of stuff and then spitting it out. You can never capture how language actually came to be in the way that communication really works, which I thought was a really cool way of putting it.
But I could easily see us falling into the, trap, the laziness trap of, let me just use ChatGPT to do my first draft.
Yeah. Oh, easy.
And how much of, I mean, we write a lot for this show. We write monologues, all week, every week. And so much of my thinking comes from having to actually sit with the blank paper
100%.
And grapple with it.
Yes.
And I come up with new insights that I hadn't thought of before as I'm in the writing process. Sometimes it starts, I'm like, this is weak. Like, I need to change what I'm doing here, or I need a different angle or whatever. If you're outsourcing even just that first draft to this automated technology, you really are losing some of the like spark that is unique to human beings.
Yeah.
And I could easily see us falling down that path where all we're doing is having this machine regurgitate and mash up for us things that already exist. And, you know, it dulling the sort of creativity and joy and variability of the human experience within our culture. So that's what this really underscored for me, is actually some of the perils, not of like, I do think the concerns about like, what's it gonna do and how smart's it gonna get and how is it gonna display, I think those are legitimate concerns. But this underscored for me the opposite concern, which is rather than taking over, it just makes all of it, like drags us down, makes us dumber.
Very good point.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.